Hello, and thank you for watching. Before we begin, I would like to disclose that I will be looking down at various points of this video because I have compiled a set of notes that will help me stay on point and effectively assess the assignment. The assignment requires graduate students such as myself to review and reflect on the video Needs and Challenges of Disaster, uploaded by HCU Online Course Development. We were given 3 questions as a guideline to formulate our response, and as a person of structure, I will be including these questions to provide viewers like you an overall understanding of what my response pertains to. Now we can begin. For the first question, what are the needs and challenges of the heroic phase? I would like to discuss the challenges first prior to delving into the need that disaster survivors are requiring. Within the phase, disaster survivors may find themselves denying the overall impact that disaster has had on their homes as well as their overall environment. They may deny the overall impact that disaster has had on themselves individually and as well as their families. Disaster survivors may utilize to an extraordinary measure to not only protect their homes, but as their families as well. And they will stockpile community assets such as food and water, things of that nature and necessity. An overall theme within the challenges that was presented is deniability. The reason for this statement is because disaster survivors often disregard their true need of support and aid, as well as disregarding the entire picture of how the disaster has impacted themselves, their family, and their environment. When they are in the heroic phase, they do not think that their help is long term. Rather, they believe it's short term. Realistically speaking, disaster survivors who implement themselves as heroes will utilize 12 to 14 hours of their day for a week straight to help others, and this can often lead them to feeling overall exhausted mentally, emotionally, physically. And this is where the consensus of what is required of them to do to prevent the overall exhaustion getting to them, which would be self-care strategies. As a few examples of self-care, physical activities can be implemented, whether it is going on a walk by themselves or with others. Social support, to surround themselves by those who are willing to help or may have more of a positive view on this disaster that can help them with dealing with the impact that disaster has had on themselves, their family, and their environment. And also take the time to reflect and digest the overall impact the disaster has had. Moving on. The second question, the honeymoon phase can include a crash point. Describe who, when, and why this may occur. I would like to discuss the feelings that may be unrealistic that survivors of disaster may feel within the honeymoon phase, such as feeling a great sense of gratitude, feeling that everything is going to be okay. Narrow their focus on the feeling good stories rather than negative ones, and implement normalcy if possible. Who this affects that they're experiencing a crashing point is many people of those who survived the disaster, and this occurs when the heroic phase ends and the honeymoon phase begins. And the reason for that is because the adrenaline is going up in the heroic phase, especially when they are extremely motivated to help others. But once they enter the honeymoon phase, that adrenaline can decrease, and that mental, physical, and emotional exhaustion will settle into the body, therefore presenting them a crashing point. Lastly, during the disillusionment phase, fear, anger, and hopelessness can set in. What types of clinical conditions may develop from these circumstances, and what type of treatment is best to overcome them? In the disillusionment phase, several emotions can arise within an individual or a community who had experienced the roller coaster journey of not only surviving, but now having to heal from the disaster and how it's impacted them emotionally and mentally speaking. At first, individuals may believe that recovery may be short-term, or so how they anticipated for it to be. But realistically speaking, treatment for recovery is long-term. According to the YouTube video, Needs and Challenges of Disaster, uploaded by HCU Online Course Development, disaster survivors express a variety of emotions, such as hopelessness, abandoned because outside help is shrinking, fearful about financial future, helplessness, anger, and a sense of futility. Timestamp at 4 minutes and 35 seconds. As we are now aware of how an individual or a community may feel, it is vital to note that although assistance for disaster survivors is sought through each phase, particularly within the disillusionment phase, it has been witnessed by the woman who was interviewed that there has been an influx of individuals seeking their counseling services in the span of 5 years. When they first began hosting the counseling services, it occurred in various trailers. It was never an official building. And they sent those who volunteered to distribute and collect surveys from the community, which resulted in the presence of early signs of post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, or depression. And this has predominantly increased over time. As of recently, when the video was posted in 2019, there has been a mention that there is a wait list of individuals who are wanting to receive treatment, which emphasizes the entire point of how the effects of the disaster truly impact those who survived and do require long-term recovery treatment. This is understandable because at first, for those who have survived disasters, within their mindset, they understand that the damage cannot be undone. They cannot take back the trauma they experienced from the disaster. Therefore, rather than going against the effects of trauma, professionals can lead them into understanding and accepting the trauma of impact the disaster has truly implemented in them. According to Bessel, Mandir, Kolk, MD, 2015, trauma can imprint on one's body, mind, and soul. This can be emotionally expressed as crushing sensations in their chest that may be labeled as anxiety or depression, fear of losing control, on high alert for danger or rejection, self-loathing, nightmares, and flashbacks, a fog that inhibits them from staying on task and inhibits them from being fully engaged in what exactly they're doing. And lastly, being unable to fully open up their heart to another human being. In this case, it may be towards a professional or others. This can be found on page 205 and 206. With these effects into consideration, it can be illustrated that trauma robs individuals of that feeling that they are in charge of themselves. Therefore, the trauma must be challenged, which goes back to the point previously made that rather than fighting and wishing away the trauma, what can truly be of aid is for survivors to become one with it, to accept it for what it is in order for them to truly heal long term. Therefore, incorporating this challenge into long-term recovery treatment can be of effect. A positive one to note. Regarding the overview of this concept integrated into long-term recovery, it can be broken down into various therapeutic approaches that encompasses the following goals stated by Van der Kolk on page 205 and 206. I will discuss the goals first, and then I will go back and apply a variation of therapeutic approaches that can be of aid to achieve each goal. There may be a slight sense of redundancy, but the reason for this is to provide a complete understanding. For the first goal, finding a way to be calm and focused for the disaster survivor. To be of aid, the professional can implement cognitive and behavioral therapy, which would be used to challenge their negative thought patterns and help them maintain that overwhelming sense of feelings they have experienced from the disaster itself. To accompany this cognitive behavioral therapeutic approach would also incorporate a mindful exercise such as deep breathing as of aid for the survivor to ground themselves within the present moment, as well as facilitate a sense of focus and calm. As for the second goal, learning to maintain that calm in response to images, thoughts, sounds, or physical sensations that remind the disaster survivor of their past. What can be of aid for this goal is somatic experiencing, which emphasizes the act of recognizing and releasing any trauma that's related to their physical tension present in their body. Additionally, this can support disaster survivors to develop self-awareness of their bodily responses to the triggers, such as images, thoughts, sounds, or physical sensations, and over time, learn how to regulate them. For the third goal, finding a way to feel fully alive within the present moment and help them be engaged with others that are around the disaster survivors. What was thought to be of aid is incorporating the mindful exercise of deep breathing that will ground the disaster survivor, which will be of aid in helping them feel fully alive in the present moment and removing themselves from feeling that they're in the past. And with this, they not only remove themselves from feeling stuck in the past and be more alive in the present moment, they may now be able to engage with other people around them. Because of feeling stuck in the past, they may avoid others. And with the grounding technique of helping them feel in the present moment, they are able to acknowledge that there are others around them, that is not just them. for the fourth goal, which is the last goal, not having to keep secrets from the disaster survivors themselves. This includes secrets about the ways that the disaster survivor had to use in order to survive. This could potentially mean that they have done a means that they may not feel that is accepted amongst others, which, with the incorporation of narrative therapy, can be used to help survivors refrain from their personal stories and exhibit their experiences, shifting that negative focus into a positive one with the reframing technique. And this also allows them to share their trauma without feeling a sense of shame, and also reclaiming their narrative, which goes back to reclaiming their sense of self again. And also the inclusion of survival strategies that they have developed. They no longer will feel that shame and own, rather, in a better way, be accountable of the survival strategies that they developed to survive that experience of disaster. To conclude, I have included the following resources in my videoed response, beginning with the journal article Self-Care Strategies Used by Disaster Responders After the 2023 Earthquake in Turkey and Syria, a Mixed Methods Study, which was written by Blomberg, Murphy, and Hugelius in 2024, published by BMC Emergency Medicine. As the second reference, 45 Techniques Every Counselor Should Know, which was published by Pearson Education Incorporated in 2020, and the author is Erford. HCU Online Course Development, which is the video of Needs and Challenges of Disaster, and this was uploaded in 2019. Payne, Levine, and Crane-Godreau, Somatic Experiencing Using Interoception and Proprioception as Core Elements of Trauma Therapy. This was published as a scholarly article by Frontiers in Psychology in 2015. Lastly, Van der Kolk, The Body Keeps the Score, Brain, Mind, and Body in the Healing of Trauma, published by Viking in 2014. And this fully concludes the video. The official APA 7th edition format of references will be included in the bio. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed, and thank you for your time.